I'm Holly Madison, and I listen to Brian Shapiro.
Hi, this is William Shatner, and I listen to Brian Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. We got Pat Cassell in studio as our special guest. And coming up here at the bottom of the hour, none other than Tom Arnold. But it is Wednesday, and that means it is time to get in the ring with Michael Avenatti, who joins us on the line. Michael, I heard a rumor that a nutty right-wing talk show host has labeled you the king of Italy. Is there any truth to that?
Not yet, but I'm holding out hope.
Fair enough. So let's start with some of the craziest statements that Donald Trump has made over the course of the last week. He said if there's a hurricane coming, he would recommend possibly nuking hurricanes. What do you make of that?
Well, I think what we've seen over the last, let's call it 3 to 4 weeks, is this guy is becoming completely unhinged. Forget about what you see in press reports relating to sources tell, whether it be the Huffington Post or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal. Forget about that. Let's just take his statements on Twitter at face value. This guy is literally becoming unhinged before our very eyes, and he is spiraling downward, in my view, at a rapid pace.
So we had Joe Walsh on the show yesterday, who announced a few days ago that he's going to be running for president as a Republican. In the past, he's called Trump unqualified, unfit, a child, reckless. He's called him erratic, a narcissist. I would imagine you probably agree with that analysis.
Yeah, I do. I think I've publicly stated my support for Walsh's candidacy in the primary. He and I disagree on a lot of issues, a lot of topics, fundamental issues, but one thing that we don't agree or disagree on is the fact that Donald Trump has got to go. He's a threat to the republic. He's a significant threat, and if something's not done, I don't think that this country will ever be the same.
So do you think there's any other Republican candidates out there that could run against Donald Trump and possibly knock him off?
I think there's a number of Republican candidates that if they got in the race, they could beat him, but the question is whether they will get in the race.
Any rumors?
There's all kinds of rumors out there, but I frankly think it's unlikely that a lot of candidates are going to get in the race because, and I mentioned this previously, the Republicans took steps to really close out the process, or close off the process, I should say, to other candidates in an effort to protect Donald Trump. And they took those steps a number of months ago. They may ultimately rue the day that they did that because they could be stuck with him as the nominee.
Have you been in touch with Anthony Scaramucci at all? And do you have any update as far as what he's going to do?
Well, I communicate with him on a fairly regular basis. I had said that it wouldn't surprise me if he got in the race. I think it's probably better than 50% that he will not get in the race, especially now that Joe Walsh is in the race. But I think that he's going to continue to be a voice as someone who is clamoring for the Republican Party to make a change at the top of the ticket.
And,
Scaramucci is not advocating, just to be clear, he's not advocating per se for the election of whoever the Democrats put up against Trump. What he's advocating for is he's looking to his fellow Republicans and saying, is this the guy that we want at the top of the ticket?
I have a question for you on the Democrat side. What's your take on the debate stage and all the complaints that are going on back and forth?
Well, I think it's difficult to make everybody happy relating to what the criteria are for the debates and the like. I think the sooner that the Democrats narrow this down to 6 candidates or thereabouts, the better off they're going to be.
So the Trump administration is diverting at least $155 million from the FEMA disaster relief to ICE. Now, a lot of Democrats are going after the Trump administration for that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with the Democrats that are attacking Trump over it. I don't think that's a proper allocation of those dollars and those resources to ICE. I believe that those monies have been properly designated to FEMA, and they ought to remain there. If Trump wants additional funding for ICE, then he ought to seek the appropriate appropriation bill from the Congress. And if he's not able to get it, then obviously he can't spend the money.
Mm-hmm. Just joining us, attorney Michael Avenatti joining us on the GCI Guys hotline. You've been pretty open and honest about Joe Biden. You believe he gives the Democrats the best chance to knock Donald Trump out of office. If you look at the latest polls, are you a little surprised? I'm not surprised that Joe Biden is still leading, but are you surprised that Elizabeth Warren, she is rising in the polls, along with Bernie Sanders, and that Kamala Harris has kind of dropped off the earth, so to speak?
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, look, she has great energy. She is a fighter. I think she's a hell of a campaigner. She is very well versed in policies, and she has put forward a number of policy positions. So she's appealing to, the wonkish types within the Democratic Party. So I'm not surprised that she has risen in the polls. And look, I'm an Elizabeth Warren fan, but she can't beat Donald Trump. She has no shot against Donald Trump if the economy stays strong. Now, if the economy softens, and I've said this before, anyone currently in the race for the Democrats can beat Donald Trump, because I think that his approval rating will go into the low 20s, if not high teens. It wouldn't shock me if the economy softened significantly. A lot of people forget George Bush in 1991, around October, November, he enjoyed an 81% approval rating. 81%. You can look it up. By the time that Clinton ran against him in November of 92, he had plummeted to 37% because the economy had softened. In fact, Clinton had a relatively easy primary because a lot of Democrats sat out because they looked at that 81% approval rating. So a lot can happen over the course of a year. But going back to what I was just saying, Elizabeth Warren versus Donald Trump is not a good matchup for the Democrats, is not a good matchup for Elizabeth Warren. I think that the Democrats would lose if they nominated Elizabeth Warren, and that's not because I dislike Elizabeth Warren. As I've said before many, many times, it's all about the matchup, and that's not a good matchup.
You bring up Bill Clinton back in the day, but he was a surprise. He came out of the woodwork at first because he wasn't the front runner. Do you see any sleepers on the Democratic ticket that could come out of the woodwork that we haven't seen yet? Like a Tom Steyer. Could they actually make a difference? Could they become the Bill Clinton of this generation?
Not at this point, because I think you've had so many people that have already explored it. I think it's highly unlikely that somebody just comes out of the woodwork at this point. It would have to be somebody that had huge name ID, was very, very well known, because otherwise they couldn't build the name ID necessary to become competitive in such a short period of time.
Like Michael Avenatti.
Well, we won't even touch that. But as it relates to Biden, I continue to believe that Biden is the best choice, and we should not allow perfection to be the enemy of the good.
What about his gaffes, though? How much is that hurting him in your mind?
Well, I don't think it's hurting him that much. I mean, especially when you're talking about running against Donald Trump. I don't think there's any comparison between the two relating to their ability to speak in public and to articulate a vision and ideas. Ideally, those gaffes would not occur, but I think they're going to continue to occur. But I still maintain that he gives the Democrats the very best chance of beating Donald Trump. I think if you're going to ask America to make a change with a good economy, people are going to want to make an incremental change. They're not going to want to make a drastic change. And I think there's a lot of people that feel comfortable with Joe Biden who otherwise would feel uncomfortable with a Democrat.
One other question. So let's say for some magical reason, China and Trump make a deal and the market goes through the roof. Is it game over?
I don't think it's game over. I think it becomes more difficult, although the stock market does not the economy make in the minds of a lot of people in America. All because there's a great stock market, that doesn't necessarily mean that the economy is doing wonderful for all Americans in every walk of life. There's a lot of people who are suffering even under this economy. So I don't think it's game over. It would certainly make it more difficult for the Democrats. But I've always assumed that the Democrats were going to have to run against Trump with a strong economy in 2020. I've always assumed that to be the case, and I've always assumed that it was going to be an uphill battle.
So I want to go back to Joe Walsh a little bit. We had him on the show yesterday, and he basically had the exact same views, as far as policy with Donald Trump, but his entire platform is that I'm not Donald Trump. And I think that anyone who's trying to unseat him on the Republican side or in general is just not going to get anywhere with that platform. Do you agree?
Well, I disagree in that that's not going to be enough. So, I think if you want to successfully run against Donald Trump and beat him, you're going to have to do two things. Number one, you're going to have to engage in smash-mouth politics with him and get down in the gutter and really trade some shots with him in a very ugly campaign. You're going to have to dish out a lot of punishment, go toe-to-toe with the guy, and you're going to also be prepared to really put it all on the line and take a tremendous amount of punishment. So that's the number one thing you're going to have to do. You're going to have to be a fighter. The second thing is it's not going to be enough for you to say, I'm not Donald Trump. You're going to have to provide a vision for what you believe America should look like and where America should go over the next 4, 8, 12, 20 years. And you're going to have to excite people relating to that. And you're also going to have to convince people that you can be a unifier.
Yeah, well,
as opposed to a divider.
Well, Michael, I want to ask you about this, though, because, I have a lot of respect for Michelle Obama. I really do. I didn't think Barack Obama was the best president. We agree on this, but a good man, a good family. And like I said, I have a lot of respect for Michelle Obama. But she had this slogan, right? When they go low, we go high. I disagree. I don't think that's the way to defeat Donald Trump. And what you just said, you're going to have to sling some mud at Donald Trump in some of these debates. Whoever the Democratic nominee is, you're going to have to be able to spar with Donald Trump. This when they go low, we go high is not going to get the Democrats in office. That's just my personal opinion. Do you agree with that?
Well, I agree 100%. Last August, I appeared in Iowa at a large fundraising event known as the Wing Ding. It's a very important political event in Iowa. It was attended by about 1,300 people, and I was honored to keynote that event last August. And I used the phrase, when they go low, we hit harder. And I rejected Michelle Obama's approach because of the times in which we are in. And, I caught a lot of heat from a lot of Democrats over that I had criticized indirectly Michelle Obama and had adopted a new approach. But many more Democrats were supportive of that approach. And I firmly believe that needs to be the way the Democrats go about this right now. You are not going to defeat Donald Trump unless you're prepared to go toe-to-toe with him. And I believe that when they go low, we hit harder.
So one major national comedian went very, very low in regards to former Trump supporter David Koch and celebrating his death. Do you think Bill Maher, who I'm referring to, should be reprimanded or suspended for what he did?
I don't think he should be reprimanded or suspended. I mean, I'm a fan of his generally. I think he's pretty funny for the most part. I don't think he should be reprimanded or suspended. I think in retrospect, perhaps he wouldn't do it. I don't know. Maybe he would. But he's a comedian. And so, I think that comedians are comedians. I don't think that we should start censoring comedians.
I have two questions. One, how dirty do you anticipate the debates between Donald Trump and whoever the Democratic candidate is? And how far left can the Democrats go before they lose their grip?
Well, I don't think they can go that far left. I think the Democrats need to nominate a left-of-center candidate, a moderate. How dirty are the debates going to be? I think they're going to be dirtier than we've ever seen in the history of American politics. I think this is going to be a cage match. It's going to be a gutter match, whatever term you want to use. But it's going to be absolutely ugly. But let me tell you, and I've said this for the better part of a year, here is what I think is going to make the difference in the 2020 presidential election. I think there's going to have to be a flashpoint, and I don't know exactly what it's going to be or what the question's going to be or what the issue's going to be, but I predict that there's going to have to be a flashpoint in one of these debates between the Democratic nominee and Donald Trump, an opportunity for the Democratic nominee to really embarrass Donald Trump and deliver a knockout blow to the point where he is mocked uniformly, even among members of his base. And that will spell the end of Trump's political career, in my view, if the Democrat is able to step up into that hole and deliver that knockout blow.
And you think
like a bully? It's like a bully on a playground.
The
bully on the playground continues to be the bully right up until the time that he is shown up at which point his reign ends. And I think that whoever the nominee is going to be better be prepared to do that.
And do you think, see, this is where, Michael, I think you and I disagree a little bit. I'm not so sure Joe Biden is capable of doing that. Listen, I respect Joe Biden, Michael. I've said that a gazillion times. He's done a great job, great service to this country. He's had a difficult life, losing his wife and a couple of his children, and I have the utmost respect for him. Yes, he says some blunders. I think that is probably age more than anything. But do you really think, Michael, that Joe Biden is the guy that can go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump and exchange those type of blows? Because I'm just not sure he's that guy.
Well, I think he's the best shot when you couple the need for that with somebody that can win in these 5 key electoral states, right? So you got to have both. And look, I'm not going to debate your skepticism. I have my own skepticism relating to his ability to do that. The problem is that other nominees for the Democrats that could potentially deliver that knockout blow, could be that quick on their feet, can't necessarily go and win in those 5 key electoral states. For instance, I don't think Elizabeth Warren can win those 5 key electoral states. I just don't, unfortunately.
But here's one for you.
Donald Trump.
Bernie Sanders, and I don't like Bernie, but I think he is the one guy of all the candidates that could actually get low enough and attack Trump.
Well, I don't disagree. And I think that look, if Bernie's policies were a little more mainstream, if he was not so far out to the left, I think that he might be the nominee. I think he might be the guy that could do it.
I agree.
He's got a lot of fire in the belly. He can certainly go toe-to-toe with Trump, but the problem is that his policies are so far to the left that he, too, would have a difficult time in those 5 key electoral states. Now, I will say that of all the candidates in the race right now, Biden would be my first choice. And if I had to pick a second choice, I would probably pick Elizabeth Warren over Bernie, but it'd be a very difficult choice. I might, it depends what day you ask me.
I mean, what do you think that socialist America looks like under Bernie Sanders?
Well, I don't think America becomes socialist under Bernie Sanders because I don't think that the president is, frankly, that powerful to usher in a complete new regime of socialism, if you will, in America. I think that'd be a very difficult task to accomplish, even with a democratically controlled Senate and House. I just don't think that happens.
Just joining us again, attorney Michael Avenatti on the line. Okay, Michael, so I'm sure you've heard this story, allegedly Trump privately clashing with these G7 leaders over inviting Putin back, and this is just unbelievable nonsense. As you know, Trump has a history of never really criticizing Russia and praising Vladimir Putin, who is an evil, murderous dictator. Make no mistake about it. What do you make of this story, and what do you think some of the leaders were telling him in that room?
Well, I don't get it. I am perplexed as to why Donald Trump has such an affinity for Vladimir Putin. He stood shoulder to shoulder with him in Helsinki. He has backed him up against many allies of the United States. For all my conservative friends out there and the individuals that are staunchly Republican and on the right, ask yourself this. What would Ronald Reagan say if he witnessed this? Ronald Reagan is rolling over in his grave on a daily basis with knowledge of what Donald Trump is doing relating to Russia and Putin. I mean, it is shocking, it's disgusting, and you begin to wonder, what the hell does Putin have on Donald Trump? I mean, this can't be your standard bromance. It just can't.
No, I mean, what do you think it is? Because, I mean, we all have our ideas or opinions on it. I mean, what the hell does Putin, do you think it's a financial thing? I mean, what do you think? Why is it? There's got to be a reason.
Well, I don't know what it is, but it's got to be a reason. It's got to be a substantial reason, because he continues to buddy up to Putin and advocate on behalf of Putin against the interests of the United States and its allies. I mean, this is really unheard of. And for him to go to bat again for Putin at the G7 with the leaders of our allies, it's absurd. It's uncalled for, and it's frightening.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you're just joining us again, it's Michael Avenatti. Okay, Michael, so this is going to be a lot of fun coming up here in our next segment. I know you're friends with this guy. We've seen him on the big screen. Very funny guy, also extremely intelligent. Tom Arnold. So this is going to be a lot of fun, Michael. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back on the other side, Tom Arnold will be joining Michael Avenatti live right here on the Vegas Take. It is going to be a very entertaining segment, to say the least. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this, and maybe we'll squeeze in a few phone calls as well with that number, 702-257-5396. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. Michael Avenatti and Tom Arnold are going to be on the air at the same time. My head is going to explode. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.
This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
Come on, guys!